Hello, my name is Dave Phillips. This is an attempt to formulate why I do what I do. The creative process is a channel and a driving force for me, a way of coping with the world I live in and with the me I live in. I regard sound as a language, a communication to the senses in direct and primal form, a language that comes before or goes beyond rationality and logic. It talks to different senses in different ways. Sound is vibration, is an exchange that includes the possibility to touch people and is about the things that stay and grow from being touched. It's a sharing of energy. Sound is also a tool of metaphysics. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, identity, reality, time, and space. In this sense, sound is like a conscience, a consciousness, a subconscious, a space, a state of being. Connected to that is the idea of culture and its possible mission. The cultural mission, for me, is to question so-called reality, to inquire about normality, to challenge norms, to expose limitations, but also possible expansions, to push limits, to cross boundaries, to try, to test, to experiment, to scrutinize habits and patterns, to transgress, to feel further, to tickle the consciousness and to inspire it, to create states of trance and liberation, to endorse growth and change. 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 The artist, then, is someone part of a social context that contributes to his or her direct environment and therefore is responsible to ask questions, to challenge, to be critical, share visions, question rules, to use his or her voice to push forward, to offer ideas and sentiments, and so nurture, to contribute to his or her environment and its development, and on a larger scale, hopefully, to the evolution of this species, and so to life and to coexistence on this planet. The human being is a very young species. In relation to most other life forms on Earth and to the age of this planet, Homo sapiens appears about 1 or 2 seconds ago. We still have a lot to learn. Art, culture, and its constant renewal are an important force that drive this human learning process that feeds human evolution. I prefer sound as a language. The verbal language, as much of a useful tool as it is, often feels restrictive, a reduction of underlying intentions and emotions, a small part of a bigger picture, like a transmitter that is insufficient. verbal language is somehow too systematic for me. A quote: "There are at least two types of knowledge, but only one you can put into words." Hyperconnectivity is what some call chaos. Everything that is alive, or maybe everything that vibrates, can create connections if one is open for them. But there are so many things that vibrate and so many ways that they can connect that the rational human mind seems far from understanding. Quote, "We know enough to know how much we will never know." Naomi Klein. But there are other ways, other senses that we have or need to nurture more in order to observe, perceive, and understand better. Every shared breath is an act of copulation in which our DNA gets mingled. Connections with any living element in any moment can nourish, can transmit information and knowledge, can alter the course of things. My work and my life are inseparable. They are driven by the same things. All I feel, hear, see, touch, sense, read, eat, experience, etc. can be an influence. Distinctions such as public, private, political, personal, work, leisure, artist, fan, subject, object, reality, dream, consciousness, unconsciousness, subconsciousness, etc. I find somewhat inadequate. For me, in this hyperconnectivity, all things feed from and flow into one thing. Curiosity drives me, and the wish to explore the possibilities of existence and to search beyond, believing there's got to be more to life and more to the human potential. Most dimensions are yet to be explored, until we find balance in ourselves and a balance with and in our environment. The things I wonder about are, let's say, existentialist in nature. I ponder life, its possibilities and its potential. Doing this, I come across habits, behaviorisms, traditions, conditionings, morals, restrictions, limitations, borders, and so forth. When I look around me, sometimes I really wonder what we humans are doing with our so-called skills, with this supposed intelligence, with this freedom that we ought to have. I am often underwhelmed and alienated. My work is also a form of critique. I use the term ritual protest music. Protest against what? I protest against the restriction and reduction of life, of all life, of all life, of all life. The restriction of knowledge to rationality or reason. The reduction of perceiving to thinking. The reduction of beings to objects or to food or to lives that can be used or exploited. The restriction of humans to problems to be locked out at borders. The reduction of all our interesting differences to categorical and simplistic identification patterns such as nationality or religion. or the restrictions called national borders that inevitably lead to mental borders, mental restrictions and self-restriction. The reduction of people to labor or to consumers. The reduction of nature to a resource that is there to be used. The reduction of the human potential via public educational systems to conditioned automatons. The restriction of the I as a being without interest in knowledge or growth of self, as binary beings that just compute and consume or like to be entertained and otherwise work or sleep, as the market and media often suggest. The reduction of produce or energy or lives to waste. All this waste. Waste is stupid, it's careless and it's short-sighted. I protest against waste. I question these standards and values as they often make me feel uncomfortable. I cannot agree with these restrictions of life, with this waste, but I am part of it as well. So a lot of my criticism comes from self-reflection and from self-criticism. I am part of all this and I have to deal with the world and mind I live in. But I wish to deal with this. I want to engage. It's exciting. I want to learn. Learning is one of those things in life that makes sense. That's why we must keep our curiosity. That's why we make mistakes. Pain is a good teacher. My work touches on topics such as environmental sensitization, sentient awareness and perception, animal and human rights, or existentialist equality. But it's more so the interconnectivity or hyperconnectivity between all these things that interests me. For example, how these topics relate to the idea of domination, or to supremacy and hierarchical thinking, or to the economic mindset, which, in my view, is one of the main destructive forces of our day and age, next to religion. Profit has become more important than life. My work talks about this unbalance, about this disrespect. My work engages itself for respect and for engagement. Here's a quote from the English hardcore punk band Anti-Sect. To oppose those who play the lords and masters of peoples and animals, of forests and waters, who rule arbitrarily and impoverish life. I question power in all its forms. Not just political power or economic power, but also the power that comes from being born into a privileged environment, or the powers that our actions unleash, for example, our consumerist actions. Because I believe that with power comes responsibility. Unfortunately, nowadays, it seems that power often goes hand in hand with some kind of oppression or avarice. Another side of my work is its therapeutical aspect. I heard that it has a cathartic quality. The act of purging, of releasing, of expelling, of liberating, of cleansing, of channeling or focusing energies, of expelling negative matter, also including self-empowerment and self-healing. These states of trance, these things correspond with my intentions, very much so. Somewhere there is where this seemingly unformulatable music called noise music makes some sense. The therapeutical aspect is also a means to test limitations and to go beyond them, to step out of one's comfort zones, to invade others' comfort zones, to dare explore new things, testing reactions of the psyche and of the body, of realities and of the senses. Like this, I address instinctive, animalistic and emotional sides of existence, in search of an origin or a source, but not in a back-to-the-roots kind of way, but in the sense of a primal release from the omnipresent restriction and reduction of life, its decisive steps forward. Albert Eiler said, "Music is the healing force of the universe." Edgar Varese said, "To reveal a new world is the function of creation in all the arts." There's also the aspect of mediating. I use a lot of animal sounds in my work and perform, make sounds, etc. in ways that have to do with an animal aspect of existence, with the animal nature of the human animal. I use inspiration and sounds from nature, from animals, but I perform and present my work in an urban human environment. So my work also includes the aspect of transmission or exchange between these levels, a form of mediating, communicating between worlds. That's also how I arrived at field recordings, although I must say, becoming conscious of such a mediating position only came much later. As with much of my work, the ability to understand or to formulate why I do what I do usually comes after the act itself, sometimes much, much later. The act and its elements are mostly driven by subconscious, by the gut. It's only now, after 35 years of activity, that I'm able to formulate all this in the way that I'm telling you today. Field recordings are a very direct and concrete expression of this mediating, because hearing is not the same as listening. We have arrived again at the topic of sound as a language, as a communication, of nature or of the planet. Floods, tornadoes, soil erosion, rising sea levels, heat waves, climate change, etc. These are but the most obvious examples of nature speaking its language. We hear this, but are we listening? Can we, do we want to, understand what is being communicated? The quality of attention defines the quality of experience, of listening and of understanding. Perception changes through immersion, being part of something. This also means being able to step out of our self-made prison of anthropocentrism. So, I am driven by some big questions, like the existential potential, or what freedom can mean and how we can reach for it, or liberation, dignity, equality, balance, and so on. Respect. Tapping the essence of life. At the bottom of all these questions, though, is that curiosity, which makes me ask, there's more to life than this, isn't there? It's a hunger. Finding myself in the here and now, There's too much horrible shit in this world that could get me down. I prefer to focus on where do we go from here. The human potential fascinates me as much as it scares me. I believe we're only at the beginning of human evolution. Our species is still in its infant shoes. We possibly underestimate our inherent knowledge. Hopefully, we can find the turn before our greed, selfishness, and violence destroys our home. I have developed a concept called humanism that also somehow tries to describe what my work is about. The starting point is the human species as a very young animal on this planet. Regardless of the human's incredible skills, it still hasn't found its balance within nature. The concept of humanism thus describes a developed humanoid existence that has overcome the erroneous religious, material, and supremacist phases of evolution, phases that are recognized as mistakes that anticipate learning processes, and has arrived at an existence that acknowledges itself as part of a non-hierarchical whole, and not as its dominator, and has grown into an empathic, conscientious and connected creature, allowing emotion and instinct to be an equal part in decision-making, and has thus developed a consciousness that goes beyond the previously dominant one-sided, reductive, rational, logical, systematic, male, anthropocentric mindset. Having balanced itself within its environment by retracing a source, with environmental and social awareness becoming primary inherent sensual functions. Sound is a big part of my work, but it is not my work per se.